This is Gayle, and I'm going to be doing a little experiment today and thought I would go ahead and film it. Not sure how it's going to work, but until I try it, I don't know, do I? So what I thought I would try to do is to see if the Joseph's coat technique will work with our True Color Fusion ink. I have heard that the technique does not work well with dye-based ink, that it does better with a pigment ink. And since ours is a hybrid of the two, I'm kind of curious how it's going to work. So I'm going to be using the black licorice, but I won't be needing that till the end, so I'm just keeping that out of the way just because I have very limited workspace. But I'm going to use Lemon Drop, Citrus Cooler, and Beach Breeze. And then I'm going to be using the heart from the Coils and Curls stamp, just because I like that heart. And I'm going to be using the Sentiment Thank You from the Must Have Sentiments stamp set. And I've already got those mounted on my blocks. But the first thing I need to do is I have an A2 card base, and this is whipped cream. And I'm going to go ahead and fold that and then get it out of my way. So now that's done, and that is out of my way. I'm going to have a black panel, which I won't be using until later. The black panel, by the way, is black licorice, 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Then I have a white panel that is 3 5/8 by 4 7/8, and I'm going to put that aside. And the one we're going to be working on is a whipped cream panel that's 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. Like I said, we're going to see how this works. I'm going to be using our daubers. I'm going to start with the Lemon Drop. And this one is a new dauber, so I need to make sure it's good and wet. And I'm just going to start applying some color. And just kind of spread it around a little bit. Maybe I'll put some in the middle over here. Okay, so that might be it for the Lemon Drop. I'm going to leave my daubers here. The next one, I always start with my lightest color, so the next color is Citrus Cooler. And I'm going to put some of that maybe up here in this corner. Kind of blend it over to the yellow so that we'll have some shades of, lighter shades of yellow. And I think I'll put some down here. Again, kind of blend it in with the yellow. Maybe I'll come up this way. I'll go ahead and just make it a little straight line through here. Okay. And then we're going to use the Beach Breeze. And got that white spot there. And I like the way the Beach Breeze blends into the yellow to kind of create a pretty green. which is why I left this big space over here. I'm going to come in there so that we'll also have that pretty green. There. So I think that's pretty. Okay, now the fun part starts. I'm going to use clear pigment ink. Well, first off, I'm going to dry this. I tried this before and I think the ink stayed wet too long. And let me get my tweezers out just to kind of hold it still. But I'm going to just dry this a little bit with the heat gun just to make sure this ink is dried. It seemed to hold on to the embossing powder and the last time I tried it, and I think it's because it was just still wet. So we want to make sure that our ink is dry. And I pretty well saturated this with ink. Of course it warped on me, so I'm going to turn it over and do this side. See if I can't get it to flatten out. The heat has a tendency to make your cardstock bow, and sometimes I can heat on the back side and it uncurls, but it doesn't look like that's going to work today. But that's all right. We're going to be heating this again in a minute anyway. Alright, so now I'm going to take my clear pigment ink. And the first thing I'm going to do is stamp my sentiment, because I want to make sure that I've got room for that. And get this really nice and inked up. And I'm going to stamp that right here at the bottom so that it goes across all of the colors. Now you're not going to be able to see this very well because it is clear. Then I'm going to use the heart, and I'm just going to stamp this a few times on here. Let me get a scrap piece of paper because I'm going to go off of the paper and I don't want to get the sticky ink. Before I do anything, I'm going to put one complete heart, well, maybe not even complete. Let me just stamp right there. And then ink it up again. But this ink is so sticky, if you don't put a piece of paper under your card, then you end up with sticky stuff all over your work surface. And you'll notice on the pigment ink, it's not permanently attached, so it will slide around. That's okay. Just slide it. And let me see. I might do this one on its side. Right there. And a little bit right there. Alright, so let's see what we did here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my media tray and I'm going to put clear embossing ink over it. And just make sure it gets covered good. I'll try to touch it down here where there's... And I forgot to use my pan pastel. There's a little bit of embossing powder in places I don't want it. And I will put this back in the jar when I'm finished. And now we're going to emboss. What did I do with my tweezers? Here they are. I think this is the most fun thing that I do is embossing. I love to watch the embossing happen. And I believe that got everything. Okay, now I'm going to let this cool a little bit. So I'm going to just turn the camera off for a minute and let this cool. Okay, now I've got my black licorice ink. And I think I'm going to try to go straight to the paper. I don't know that that's going to work, but I won't know until I try. So let me go straight to the paper. And just make sure everything is all covered up with your black ink. Of course, you're going to get it all over your fingers. Let me get a paper towel before I get all over everything. And then while I've got this paper towel, I'm going to take it and I'm going to wipe over where the embossing is and uncover. That looks nice. Uncover where the embossing is, and you can see your pretty colors. Now the black ink was not dry yet, so it looks like I wiped some off right here. Let me just get a sponge and just kind of touch up right along the middle where I wiped off the black ink. And of course, probably should have used a dauber for that, because I got it back on here. So I just need to wipe that off before the ink dries. But isn't that pretty? There, can you see all the pretty colors? So I think what I'm going to do, since this is going to be on white, I think I'm going to use our new white organza ribbon. And make sure this ink isn't going to come off on my ribbon. Well, I think first, before I do this, I think I'm going to go ahead and put this on my white, my 3 5/8 by 4 7/8 panel. And I'm trying to put it somewhere where this ink won't come off. I'm pretty sure this ink is dry. Yeah, it's dry. And I think I'm going to do this flat. I'll do this layer flat because it is a little warped from the heat. And this way I can tape it really good all the way around with my Easy Glide. And I believe this is just a very small margin, if I recall correctly. There we go. Now that will be flat. That is so pretty. Alright, so that's flat. So I think on the black one, oh, this is where I'm going to put the organza ribbon. And what I'm going to do is put a little bit of the Easy Glide. I want to make sure it doesn't cover up the thank you. So I need to come up about this far. And I'm going to take a piece, I'm going to take my Easy Glide and put it across there to catch my ribbon. I'm not going to wrap it all the way around. I'm just going to do a faux wrap. But put it there. And then just stick it to the glue on the back, the Easy Glide. Make sure you get it straight. There. And I'm going to make a bow after I get this all mounted, but I think now I'm going to pop this up. So what does Richard say? When in doubt, pop it out. So I'm going to pop this up, which will help because of the ribbon. This will keep it from getting too out of whack. You know what else I thought it would look nice? Is how about some silks? Let's see, I think this one is a bigger margin. So before I put it on the white, let's use some silk. Let's put some gold. And I use one of my bloom box boxes. See, I've got it marked. That's my spray box. I use it for my sprays and for my silks, and that way it doesn't get all over everything. I probably should have done this before I put the ribbon on it, but that's okay. So let's put some gold. Just love that spatter. And of course, this wouldn't be complete without some sparkle silk. know if you've ever noticed when you use your sparkle silk how it kind of fizzes a little when it hits the paper. It's almost like it's, I don't know what it's like. I'm sure it's just the sparkle floating around. And you know, I think I'm going to put a little bit of turbo teal. No, I think that's enough spatter. I think that's going to be enough. Isn't that pretty? It's always prettier with silks. If you've never tried our silks, you really should, because they are fantastic. But can you see the sparkle on there? That's awesome. And then I am going to put this, let's see, should I go flat? Yeah, I think I'll go flat. I'm going to just use my Easy Glide. You see, it really shows up on the black, doesn't it? And I'm going to put this on here. Try to get it centered. These small margins I really struggle with. And then I'm going to take a bow. I think I'm going to make just a, well, no, I think I'll do one of Richard's bows. Now that I've learned Richard's method of making bows, I really love it. Loop it around twice. Whoops. Hold on to it. Let's do it this way. So we've got 2 loops. That's not right. Cut it off. Take this down through here. I didn't leave myself much of a end here, but hopefully it will work. But just play with your bow till you get it the way you want it. I love this organza ribbon. It makes the prettiest bows. Trim the ends the way you want them. If you want points or if you don't want points, whatever floats your boat. I probably should have gathered this. I didn't even think about that. I know what I'll do. I just happen to have a piece of black journey twine. Since this card is black, and I'm just going to tie a little knot right there. And just cut that off. You'll never see it. Then I'm going to take some glue dots. And I'm going to use 2. I'm going to put 1 on this side. And 1 on the other side. And before I do this, I always look to see which is the pretty side of my bow and make sure that I get them on the not so pretty side. There we go. Looks like my bow is a little, I might stick one up underneath my ribbon too. Doesn't want to stick on the ink, probably because the black ink isn't totally dry. Nope, it didn't stick. So I'm going to use, what am I going to use that I can get up under there? I'm going to wait for the ink to dry good, and then I'll use that. But look at that. Is that not a pretty card? It says thank you. If you can see it under the bow. Maybe I need to cut these a little bit shorter so you can see it. There. But there you go. You've got a gorgeous card. So it does work with our True Color Fusion ink. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to be doing some other experiments, and I will keep you up to date with the things that I do, and hope that you come back soon for another tutorial. This is Gayle, your Fun Stampers Journey Coach, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.